Hello there, I'm Sarfancy, and in this exhausting tutorial I will show you how to create first-person shooter in Unreal Engine 5, or at least how to get started. Tutorial is very beginner friendly because I will show you everything from scratch, how to work with Unreal Engine 5, how to migrate assets from Unreal Engine 4 to Unreal Engine 5, how to change your weapons, how to adjust aim, and in the end I will also show you how to create sort of a minigame where you shoot target, it counts score, etc, etc. Alright, let's get started. First of all, you will of course have to install Epic Games Launcher. You can find it on Epic's website, I will leave you a link in the description. Then you will have to go into Unreal Engine part, and in a library you should be able to just click on plus version and find here Unreal Engine 5. But in case that you don't have it here, you can go into UE5 right here and download early access, which will take you right here and add this 500 early access. It's possible that you don't have here early access. In that case, good for you, it's not gonna crash as many times as it will for me. But you will also have to install some version of Unreal Engine 4, because we will use it to import some items from Marketplace right into Unreal Engine 5, because a lot of items and assets do not support Unreal Engine 5 yet, but you can import them in Unreal Engine 4 project and then simply migrate it into Unreal Engine 5. I will show you how to do that in a minute. I am going to use 4.27, so let's launch that, just to create that library project. And right now it doesn't really matter, we are doing it just to migrate stuff. So let's create game empty blah blah blah, call it library 4 or whatever you want, and create the project. And then you can ignore everything and close it right there. Now from the asset store we will use FPS weapon bundle, and that's just to have some weapons to play with, something to switch, blah blah blah. You can find it on Unreal Engine Marketplace if you just go in here and put here exact name as is here. But I will leave you of course link in the description, so you can just right here click in open in launcher and have it right here. Then add to project, and let's use library 4. It will import everything to your new Unreal Engine 4 project, and then we can finally get to what you are here for and create Unreal Engine 5 project. We got much better image, that's how you know that you made the progress. You got higher version. Alright, now it gets a bit more interesting. We are also making a game, but we want to make first person game. And let's leave it in blueprints and target platform as desktop. Quality preset, let's leave to maximum, we will change it later. And of course starter content, let's leave to true, and also ray tracing, it's up to you, depends what GPU you have. And now let's rename the project to, let's call it my FPS. And now we are finally in Unreal Engine 5. For some reason I have to update project fast, so you can just click on update, it will quickly update it, you don't really have to worry about that. And let's dismiss plugins, we won't worry about that. It was right behind my camera, I'm sorry about that, but most of the things I will of course have somewhere where you can see that. First of all, depending on your system, it's a good idea to make sure that you can run everything well. So if you click on this little icon left up, let's find here show FPS. And in my case, it's running on pure 60 without a problem. If I click on play, you can see that everything is fine, beautiful, and all that funny stuff. But if you have any problem, or if you have more complex game, this is just a template, you will have to click right here on this scalability and set it up. Let's say that it's not running that well on 20 FPS, you can switch it to medium. It will lower quality and everything, but it will be much easier to work with, which is something that you want. It scaled everything down, so you can see that shadows are not that prominent, and also vertices are much lower on all the meshes, etc, etc. In case that you don't have it here, click on setting on the right, and you should have here engine scalability setting right here, and it's the completely same thing. I will leave it in high because I wanna flex my computer. It's new one, so I have to kinda, flex. Now you don't even have to close that. Let's get back to Epic Launcher. And in your library, let's also open that first project. So library 4. If you just wanna look over that, click on that FPS bundle, weapons, blah, blah, blah. We have here some meshes, some grenades, blah, blah, blah. What we will simply do is to leave it in content, right click, migrate, save everything, blah blah blah, and you will have to save some map because I don't have here any. Click OK and find here in Unreal projects your new project. So my FPS, click on content and select folder. Now it should be all done, you can close this project. And now in Unreal Engine 5 we have our content drawer hidden, but you can click here. But I would recommend you to learn all the keyboard shortcuts, so click Ctrl spacebar and will find you this thing, which is the same as previously. And you can of course also dock it and have it here, but using shortcuts it's probably much better. So let's close it, Control spacebar, and we will have to find here FPS weapon bundle. And if you look at it, everything was imported without a problem. Hey, just a quick one. I make new game and mostly VR games right now every week. So if you are interested in that and wanna see what games I'm making and other stuff from me, somewhere here is my Instagram. Here you can see what games I make look like. So yeah, I'm gonna stop and let you work. See ya. So now that we have taken care of all the organizational stuff, let's get to actually coding. If you have never worked with Unreal Engine before, don't worry about it. You don't have to understand everything. Just try to follow it step by step as I do stuff, and eventually you will know why I do stuff, etc. etc. Right now, just focus on copying it and you will see where it will lead you. Alright, first thing we will look into is our first person character. If you click on it, it will highlight right here on the right side as first person character. Click on edit and it will take you into editing this blueprint interface. What it basically is all the logic that's responsible for how this reacts. You can think about blueprints as little objects that are each responsible how each of them reacts. So you will have one blueprint for enemy, one blueprint for your player, and let's say one blueprint for weapon that you are using. Luckily everything here is well commented, so you can later on go through this stuff and see which is responsible for what, etc. etc. First thing I want to do is to make me able to sprint. Let's go left here into components, which is list of objects that's in this particular blueprint, and we will look into character movement. Right here in search details you can put here max walk speed, and you can see that it's set to 600. If I set it to 2000, I should move about 3 times as fast. So let's click on play, and you can see that it works pretty well. Acceleration is still a bit slower, but you can work with that if you want. Back in edit first person blueprint and character movement, let's switch back to 600. You can just click on this little arrow. But what we will do is to right click and put here shift, left shift. Click enter, and what this basically does is after you press left shift, it will do some action, something will happen. And what I will simply want to do after I press left shift is to take my character movement from here, and let's write here set max walk speed. And let's set it to 1500. Remember that by default it's on 600, you can see it right here. So after I press shift, it will set it to 1500. Then let's click on that node again, Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and put it on release. On release, I want it to be back on 600. But I again have to connect my character movement. Alright, let's try that. Click on play to test that, or if you want, you can use shortcut, which is Alt P. That will start. Alright, I'm walking normally. If I press shift, you can see that I sped up. You can see it dead well because movement of your weapon is still same, but you are moving faster. You can see it more if you just slow down by releasing that finger from shift. Isn't it funny? I just call it the release finger from keyboard. That's professional deformation right here. Alright, to change our speed of movement, we will have to go into viewport, which is basically visual part of your blueprint, how everything looks, blah blah blah. And we will look into our main mesh, which are these hands. It's called mesh 2p. And if you go right here, you can see that all the animation is taken care of in animation first person anim BP, which is just blueprint that's taking care of all the animation. If you click on this little icon, it will take you into that blueprint. You can see that we have here animation FPP run. So if you open that, there is node that's taking care of animation of running. If you double click on it again, you can preview it as actual animation. And what we will do is to speed it up once you start running. Somewhere here should be play rate, rate scale, I believe. Let's try to switch it to 3, and look at that, it's moving much faster. That's what we will do. So leave it on 1, and you can re-click here like if you were using internet browser. Let's go back into first person anim BP, new state machine, and we will copy this thing. So Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and let's rename it to sprint. Double click on it, and if you click on your first person run, you can set here that play rate to, let's try 3, and just leave it like that. And now we have to set up some conditions where it will go from this run to this sprint. You can put these little arrows from here, so let's put it on this way and way back. Now if you double click on it, you have to set up here some boolean. Boolean is variable that's either true or false, which means it has only 2 states. Promote it to variable, and we don't want to have it just like that, so let's click on Alt, left click, it should deselect it. Now if you take it from here, let's put here is equal to, oh no, that's not equal to. equal to, and true. So if this is true, it will be true, of course, and it will go from run to sprint. And on your way back, you can just paste it again. I've clicked before Ctrl+C if you haven't noticed, and connect it right here. If it's true, it will go from run to sprint. If it's false, it will go from sprint back to run. So now we also have to set up that variable in first-person character. In event graph, let's quickly add here new variable right here on this icon and call it sprinting. If left shift is pressed, let's set it to true, and if left shift is released, we will set it to false again. And now back in first-person anim BP, we have here event graph, which is similar to this event graph where all the logic is happening, and we have to rework it here just a bit so you can access all those variables. So from here on our event blueprint update animation, let's cast here. So cast to first person character, make sure it's same name, connect it, connect this thing here, and compile. Now from this little pin you can take that variable. So let's find here sprinting, get sprinting, and we will simply use it to set up our is sprinting in here. So we are using sprinting variable, sprinting boolean from first person character to set up is sprinting variable in our animation blueprint. So right now when you press left shift, it will set sprinting to true, which will set is sprinting to true. That should cause going from this run to this sprint. Now let's see if it actually works or I'm just lying to you all this time. Click on play. And if I move around just normally, it's fine. If I press shift, I can see it's moving much faster. That's cool, it adds something to it. Right now he looks more of an epileptic than anything else. We will fix it by adjusting that rate, how much we sped it up. You can find all those blueprints in your content browser, so Ctrl spacebar, and that should be in first person, animations, and first person anim BP. Let's open that, and if we look into sprint BP, we set it before to 3, let's try 1.8, I think should look pretty good. Alright, click on play. Now if I move around, it's pretty good. If I press shift, it looks much better. Now it's kind of a good Doom gameplay, if you know what I mean. Alright, now let's program some more interesting features. Right now you can't move your weapon too much, but I want to set it up similar to, let's say, Call of Duty, where after right click it will aim right to your eye. Let's say, not very realistic, but it looks cool nevertheless. So, how to do that is actually pretty simple. We will go into edit first person character again, and put here a right click. And you know what, we will actually do it more proper way. Click on edit, project setting, and right here we should have input action somewhere. Ooh, where is it? Input right here under engine, and we will have to add here action mapping. You already have here jump, fire, and reset VR, which you can ignore. We will add a new one, and let's call it aim. And for that input we will use right click. You already have your mouse, so let's put here just the right mouse button, and you can put here as many actions as you want. So let's say that you also want it to happen once you press Control. So I think that it's just left control. Yeah, I just missed it. Keyboard, left control. So right now, once you use aim input action, it will either be triggered with right mouse button or left control. Now back in first person BP, right click and put here the new input action. I call it just aim, so action event right here. And what you want to do is to change position of this mesh to B. And we have simple way to do that, so let's take our mesh with it. And the useful thing is that if you move mesh to, it will also move your gun and also move this sphere. That sphere is used as location from where it should shoot. Back in event graph, let's take mesh to P and we will use move component to. Right here you can set up to which locations and rotation it will set up. And by the way, these are relative location, which means location relative to this character. This character has some 0, 0, 0 location, which is, I believe, somewhere here. This should be on 0's location. And in Unreal Engine, you can set either relative location or world location. World location is relative to everything in your map, and relative location is always relative to that actor. But don't worry, we are gonna mix them. I mix them all the time, so just something that you should be aware of. So after we press aim, we want it to get on different location than it is right now. Now let's promote it to variable, call it aim lock, and I don't think we will change the rotation in any way, so let's leave it like that. And then after you release it, we want to do the same thing, but then it won't be aim location, it will be our original location. Promote it to variable, let's call it original lock. Useful thing is that we already have our original location, because that's location where those arms are right now. So if you click on your mesh 2p, you can see we already have here relative location. By the way, you can right here switch between relative and world. So what we will do with that is right click, copy it. It will take all these three variables and put them into our original location. So if you click on original location, you can right click here and paste it. And what we will also do is to copy this rotation, and let's create it as variable just so we are sure. Promote it right here as our rotation, because right now it would set it to 0, 0, 0, which we don't necessarily want. So let's just connect it to both of them right now, just like that. And back in viewport, now what we will have to do is to find location we want for our aim. So put it on the side of the screen. And now what we are going to do, if you click on your character in the map, it will show you this wonderful viewport that shows you how camera is looking right now. So if you enable this pin, you can change it. So let's click on our mesh 2p and find what exactly you want. Let's say that you want it to be in somewhat of a middle, and you can deselect these snapping tools. It will be easier to work with. And also I would probably recommend you to click on this little icon which changes gizmo of transform between local and world, so it's easier to work with. So let's say something like that, and we will later also need to change our focal view, but we will do that in a minute. Alright, now maximize it again, and we will copy this location and put it into our aim location. So paste it. And now just to change it back, take your original location, copy it, and paste it right here. So right now, after you press right click or anything that's in input action, it will change our mesh location to our aim location, and if you release it, change it to its original location. Let's test that out. Okay, click on play, everything seems cool, right click, and you can see that our rotation is messed up. So we will have to fix that one as well. But other than that, it works pretty well. It's a bit slow, but we will fix that in a minute. So edit first person, and first of all, let's speed it up. So over time is basically how long it will take before it will go from original location to this new location. Let's say 0.1. And same. So we will have to create another variable. So let's do it in same way. So click on that rotation, and this thing should be aim rotation. And let's duplicate it, so right click on this variable and call it original rotations. And for our original rotation, we will set our current rotation. So right here, copy that, click on original rotation and paste it in here. Oh, if you don't see these variables here, that's because you haven't compiled it yet. So click left here on compile and put it in here. Now we will do the same thing and find it for rotation. And make sure that you don't forget, like me, in release, you also have to connect target location to our original location rotation. That's a lot of really fancy words. Alright, let's try that. Click on play. If I right click, it's zoomed in, and if I deselect it or let that right click go, it goes away. That's perfect. Now we will do one more thing, and that's to change FOV, which is field of view for your camera. By default it's on 90, so in event graph, let's take your camera and set field of view, and let's say that I want it to be zoomed in, so I would go about 75, then set it back to 90. It will add something to it, so it looks like it's really zoomed in when you put it away. So right click, something like that. And let's also get rid of this crosshair, it's useless, we don't want that. To do that, we have to figure out what is causing it. And a good way to start is always to go into window and put here world setting, which will open up right here. And let me put it here so you can really see it. And you can see we have here our game mode, which is blueprint that takes care of all the global stuff. And right here we have our HUD class, and we'll have to find that, so let's browse to it. And it didn't find it, but if I press Ctrl spacebar, it's right here. It's just that it's drawing it on center of screen. I don't want it at all, so let's just deselect it right here. We don't want to draw it, you can delete it, that's all up to you. Now it should be gone, so click on play and close that, and we get rid of our crosshair. and we can zoom in. That's cool. Maybe it's a bit too much of a jump with that FOV, but you can adjust it as you want. Okay, now we have pretty cool zoom in system and some running and sprinting, but that's pretty useless if we have this really ugly weapon. I'm sorry, it really is ugly. So we are finally gonna use that asset pack that we imported on the start. Let's open our first person character and find here our assets. Right here we have FPS weapon bundle, weapons, meshes, and you can set it to whatever you want. I'm gonna start with AK-47 because that's classic. Let's just try to switch it. So if you have your FP gun, and you can see that it's set as a skeletal mesh, so you can use, of course, so you will have to use skeletal mesh right here. And I think that we will have to use this one, which is oriented on X-axis. So let's see, and it's right the other way around. So this one, look at that. Those hand animations don't look that good, not gonna lie, but it will work just fine. Let's see if we have here a weapon that will fit it more. So let's try something like AR. Let's try IR4. Oh, that's probably a bit more accurate. And we should probably also move that sphere a bit forward. Let's use wall transform by clicking on this and move it forward. But the problem right now is that if you click on the first person character, then you can't really move it and adjust it. You can see nothing is happening. That's because if you look into construction script, which is logic or code that happens before the game starts, basically when this blueprint is created. And right here it said that our attach component is, it's that some component is attached to other component. And right here it's of course our gun is attached to mesh, which is alright, we have to use that. But we will change our rules for snapping, because right now it just snaps to target's location and rotation. We will want to keep it relative, which will break it for a bit, but then we will adjust it. So in viewport, if you compile, adjust it and make it look like it's part of it. You can probably put it all higher or the camera lower, which may be a good idea to be honest, to make it look better. But everything now works. You can see that this is a little bit off, but if you want, you can just change the target rotation as I did before in that previous part. Alright, but you probably want to set it so that you can change those weapons. So let's create new blueprint exactly for that. Let's press Ctrl Spacebar, and in our content, let's try to keep it organized. So let's go into first person BP, blueprints, and create all the blueprints in here. So right click, blueprint class, actor, and let's call it gun underscore BP. Now let's open that and open full blueprint editor if this happens to you. And what we will have to do here is in component, let's add here skeletal mesh. And as that mesh for now, right here you can set, and let's do just SKR, something that works, that doesn't really matter, because we will set it up so you can change it in your map. So let's go to construction script, take skeletal mesh, take it from this blue pin, and we will set skeletal mesh. And it's not this one, not first one, it should be skeletal mesh component, and it should be skinned mesh set skeletal mesh, I think. Yep, that's exactly it. You should rename it so it's not that confusing. So let's call it gun mesh. If you connect that construction script and set here, I don't know, AK-47, after compiling you should have here AK-47. Wonderful. Because right now we will promote this to variable, call it gun, and make sure that you set it to public variable. That means you have to click on this little eye. What it enables you to do is to change this in your map. So if I close this and press Ctrl Spacebar, let's put my gun here a few times. So Ctrl C, Ctrl V. Now what I can do is to right here on the side in details panel set up different meshes. So let's say that I want this one to be, I don't know, AR4, and this one something cool, so SKKI, something like, oh, that's oriented in the wrong way. So which one is it? This one? Yeah. Right, let's move them a bit further away from each other because we will also want to pick them up. So to do that, let's go back in our blueprint. Now if you edit this one blueprint, it will edit all of these three because they are all actually still the same blueprint. We just changed that mesh that is in there. And what we will do here in viewport is to add here a collision. So let's put here box collision. Alright, and let's set it approximately around that mesh. If you press R, you have scale where you can change it how you need. So now if we move this thing here, you should have here on component begin overlap. Let's click on that. Once blueprint that you choose here overlaps or touches this collision, something will happen. So first of all, we have to specify that it should be our actor, our player. So take it from here and put here cast to first person character, which as we know is this one. Connect it to other actor because that's the other actor we are overlapping with. And what you want to do here, if you look in your first person character, you have here that FP gun. So we want to change that. So let's take it from here. So get FP gun. We just want to take reference to it. So scroll completely down and right here you should have variables default get gun. And now we want to do the same thing we are doing in our construction script. So take your set skeletal mesh, and our target will be our gun in player, and new mesh will be of course that variable we are setting in here. So gun. Back in element graph, put it in here and connect it. So now if I walk over that, it switched to AK. If I go over this thing, it's this gun. Just to quickly explain it, on construction it will set mesh that it shows in that blueprint to the one that you specify in that map. And then once player overlaps this collision, it will set that gun that you set in construction script to gun that's inside first person character. Alright, I would say that we have most of the basics done. We can change weapons, we can shoot, zoom in, blah blah blah. But I don't really like that it shoots only once when I press the left trigger, so we will definitely add here some auto. And also some simple targets that you can shoot on. So let's start with that automatic shooting stuff. Let's go back into first person character and we will look into spawn projectile right here. You can see we have here input action fire, which is set probably to left mouse button. What will happen is that it will play montage, animation, which is just this thing that we have set up before. We can ignore that, that's just visual part. But the important thing is happening right here. It's playing some sound and it's spawning projectiles. So to change it, we'll create here a timer. So let's deselect input action fire and put it away, and we can delete these things. We don't want them or need them. That's just for setting up it with touch. Oh, didn't want to delete this thing. Just this thing. Wonderful. So what we will do here, after you press input action fire, which is left mouse button, we will set timer, and let's do timer by event. That will be easier to do right now. And enable looping, then move it back, and this value is pretty important. We'll have to promote it to variable and call it shooting timer handle. Now let's take this custom event from here and create it. So new custom event, and let's call it shooting. Okay, great. And from here we will just connect it as it was. Now we have to set up time. That's basically how often per second it should shoot. So if I put here 1, it should be once a second, which is a really long time. So I will set it to 0.2, so it should shoot about 5 times per second, which is probably still not that much for a gun, but we can use it for now. So now if I just click play, it should shoot like crazy, and it will never stop, and it's a really long delay between it. So let's close all that. Set it to 0.1, that should be twice as fast. And now on release, we will use this shooting timer handle. If you double click on this, you can move it in here, so it's a bit more organized. So now back to the timer. On release, we will want to take the timer and clear it. So clear and invalidate timer by handle. Why we are doing it like this is because we set our timer on looping and it will loop forever if we don't stop it, and that's why we use this as a reference so we can work with that. You could of course connect it like this, but in case that you have it far from each other, it's better to promote it to variable and work with it like that. Alright, so that should work pretty well, but one more thing we have to do here is that we are setting here our transform. Right here you can see that spawn transform, which is basically size and location and all that stuff from your bullet, which is right here. We will look into it in a minute. Is set right here to 1, and I want it to be much smaller. So let's say about 0.3. And see what happens. I'll close that. So now if I shoot it, it shoots pretty well. I like that. I can zoom in, shoot again. Again, looking like epileptic, but that doesn't matter. But you can see that it has a really high gravity set on that, which looks really unrealistic for a bullet like that. So what we will do is to look into that blueprint. Right here you can see that we are spawning actor, which is actor blueprint. So if you click on this icon again, we can find that. And now just quickly, it has some kind of projectile movement, which means it moves once it's spawned in some direction that's set in here, but by some velocity, which means some speed. And then it has this wonderful mesh to show us all that. If you want to change that to for bullet, you would do that here. So let's change that gravity. So in our projectile, what I want to do first is to speed it up. So let's set our initial speed and maximum speed to 4000. And you also have to scroll down and set it in our velocity, because that's actually the most important part, which what velocity it has. If you scroll back up, right here you have projectile gravity scale, and let's say that I want to have there some gravity, but not definitely 1. I don't want it to go down that fast. Right now it would be already a bit better because we have increased velocity, but I want to still put it somewhere lower. Let's say 0.4. So now if I click on play, I can see that it's acting much more like real bullets. Well, if you ignore the fact that they are bouncing. Alright, now let's get to the last part. We'll create some targets that you can shoot at. We will have to again create new blueprint, so we'll control space, and we are already in blueprint folder, so let's create here blueprint class, actor. Let's call it just target underscore BP. So what we will do here is add here a mesh, and let's do something that will be fun to shoot. So cylinder, that's always fun to shoot, of course. And let's rotate it along the axis. Okay, not along the z-axis, along the x-axis. And z leave to 0, that was my bad, you can ignore that. And now let's scale it down so it will actually look like some target. And now let's duplicate it. Make sure that that second cylinder is under first cylinder. And now let's lock those axes and we will set it to about 0.3 scale. Oh, maybe a bit bigger. Let's do 0.45. Because right now what are we going to do is to make it reddish, because it's fun to shoot red stuff. And how we are going to do that is to quickly change this material we have here. Material, let's click on this icon again. I should really figure out how it is called. It's like looking glass or something like that, right? Alright, so what are we going to do? If you look into the material, if you have never worked with it, don't worry, I will just do really simple thing. And right click on that thing and create material instance, and let's call it material underscore red. Now if you double click on that, you can just set your color and switch it to red. And because right now it's in engine content, I don't want to really have it there, let's switch it to content. Put it here, move it. Okay, perfect. So again, control spacebar, first person PP, blueprints, find our targets. And if you click on your cylinder, you can change it here to material red underscore red. Great, that looks like something I would like to shoot. So now what you can do is to, of course, add here another collision, some funny stuff, blah blah blah. But what we will actually do is to use this first cylinder and change its collisions. So you can use it basically as a collision before. If you scroll down, you will find here collision settings, and right here we have collisions preset. And we will set it to overlap all. You have here basically only 3 different options. That's ignore, overlap, or block. Blocks are basically all the world stuff and meshes. So basically if you have floor, it's blocking you so don't fall down. Walls and these objects are the same. They are there to block you from doing something. Overlap are used for all the interactive stuff. Let's say that I want 2 blueprints interact with each other. I will set it, they should overlap. And right here it's set to overlap everything. You can of course change it to overlap only static parts of the world or only dynamic parts of the world. Now when we have this, make sure that you also generate overlap event, which is this thing. Make sure that it's true. It should be true by default, but it's always good to make sure. And now scroll down and create here same event as we did before. So on component begin overlap. And here we just specify which objects it will be, which, if you remember, was called first person projectile right here. So let's take it from here, cast to first person projectile, connect it to a director. And right now we just want to make sure that it's happening. So let's take it here and put here print string. That will basically just let you know something is happening. Right here it will set here hello. And you can see that nothing is happening. How is that possible? That's probably because we also need to have in our first person projectile something interactive. So right now that you can see is collision, but if you scroll down into collision preset, it's not set to overlap anything. Either you can change it here to overlap stuff, but I probably wouldn't do that. I would just add here another collision. So let's put here another collision, make it probably a bit smaller. So scroll up again and set sphere radius to something smaller or something like that. And now if you look here in collision preset, it's set to overlap everything. Make sure that it's bigger than that previous collision, because otherwise it would never actually interact with each other. So make it bigger. And now if we try to shoot, it should work just fine. Look at that. On left upper screen, you see hello, which means our overlap is happening. That's cool. Alright, so now let's make it a bit more interesting. We will add here something of a explosion, because everyone loves explosion. So once you shoot it, what we want is first of all make sure that it happens only once. There is a really useful node called do once. Leave it here. And after that we want to play that explosion. So you have here starter content. So if you click on Control Spacebar, in content, there is starter content, particles, and there is explosion. So let's put here spawn particle at location. Where was it? Spawn emitter at location, right here. And for our rotation, let's ignore, and for our location, let's set same location as is our cylinder. So take it from here and get world location. And as our emitter, let's set that explosion. Maybe I would put it a bit bigger, so scale 2 times 2 times 2. And then you can also destroy the actor. I just copied it, but I just pressed Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V, but because I don't have here connected target, it will destroy this whole actor, this whole blueprint. Alright, so now if I shoot it, it explodes and has some coolness to it. That's cool. Alright, so one more thing, let's make a bit of a game out of it. So I will put here another blueprint that will spawn these blueprints and count score, basically how many of them you have destroyed. So let's destroy this one. Oh, delete. I'm recording for too long, not gonna lie. Right click, blueprint class, and actor, let's call it target spawner underscore BP. And what we will do here is start by putting here a text. Let's switch it to center. So if you scroll down, there is horizontal alignment. Let's set it to center. And we will have it as our score. Let's add here another component that will be arrow. So arrow. And we will add here at least 3. Let's do 5 of them. And now what you will want to do is to, you know what, leave them like that, because we will change it in a level. Let's reorganize it here a bit. Let's put our player and all our weapons a bit more back. You can also move that player start. Oh, that's not for player start. Oh, ignore that in that case. And now Ctrl-C, let's put here our targets. Rotate it all, so your score is towards you. Set your rotation to 180. And now let's systematically place here these arrows. That score should be probably highest, so take the text renderer and put it higher. We will make it bigger in a bit. So edit target spawn. Let's set it bigger. Let's start with that. In world size, it's set to 26. So let's do like 40. And now in event graph, we'll create here a custom event. So right click, custom event, and let's call it spawn target. And what it will simply do is to take all of these arrows, and on one of its locations, it will spawn our target. So let's create actor from class, and that class will be target. So target BP. And now to get randomly one of those locations, we will have to turn them into arrays. Let's put here make array and create here as many pins as you have arrows. Then from that array, we will get a copy. So get a copy, and we want to randomly choose one of them. So let's put here a random integer in range. Integer because that's the variable it works with. Minimum will be 0, which is this one, and maximum will be last one. So you can put here just 4. But if you want to be a bit smarter about that, you can take from this array and find here last index and connect it right in here. Alright, move it back, and from here we will get world location and connect it. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now let's scroll up, and on our event begin play, let's spawn that. So spawn target, that's how we called our custom event. Compile. Now if I click play, it should spawn it on one of those locations, and it's rotated in a wrong way, but we can fix that in a bit. So the easiest will be probably in our spawn target. Let's take it here, make transform, and for our location, connect here, and rotation, I think it will be Z around 90. Let's try that. Now if you click on play, look at that. It's connected, wonderful. But now we also have to set it up that it spawns next one once you destroy this one. So back in target spawner, we should be able to assign here on destroy, because once you're spawning object, spawning actor inside another blueprint, you already have reference to it. So if you take it from here and put here on destroyed, assign on destroyed, let's call it target destroyed and connect it. What we basically did here is to create new custom event once this blueprint will be destroyed. So after this, we will call our original custom event start. Oh no, how did we call it? Spawn target. Yep. And it should create endless circle of spawning targets. Let's see. Alright, let's destroy this one. Come on, die. I don't even wanna die. I just can't hit it, yeah. Now finally did it. And look at that. That looks pretty cool. And now, to make it a bit more game-like, let's also set it to count score. Let's move that up. And what we will do here is duplicate it and put score under it. And let's change its color to red. And to set it right from the start, we will go to construction script, set our text render one. You should name it. So let's do that. Let's be organized. At least let me pretend to be organized in front of you. Score number. And that first one will be just score. Alright, so we will take our score number and set text. So set text. And it should be function set text right here. Connect it in here. And to set it, we will create another variable. So left here in variables, let's call it score int, because we will use integer. And right here in variable type, switch it to integer. Compile, and now it's not gonna work, but if you take your score int, get it, and connect right here, it should be just fine. Now in viewport you can see it's set to 0, and right here it's also 0. So now what we will simply do is on event destroy, because we already have logic for that, we will take your score int, get it, and set it to ++. That's called increment int. What it basically does is add 1 to a previous variable. So now it will add 1 to it, and we simply have to take your construction script and set it again. So you connect it, and it will use that new score int. You can connect it from here, it doesn't matter. So click on play, and come on. If I actually manage to shoot it, it looks like it works pretty well. Come on. 4, 5, score 6, that's nice. So just to quickly explain how all this works, we have here just 2 custom events that take care of everything. This first one will spawn our target on a random location of one of those arrows that you can place wherever you want in the map. Logic behind that is that it creates a simple array, which is sets of variables. Then it will randomly choose one of them, get its location, and spawn that target on its place. Then it will also create new event that should happen once this thing is destroyed. If that happens, it will add your score to your text. Alright, that was a lot of work today. I hope that you finished it. If you are here, you probably did finish it, and congrats mate, because that definitely wasn't easy. So GG if you really did that. I hope that you learned something, and If you want project files for this tutorial, they are on my Patreon. You can find that for any you can find them there for any tier. I am planning to do much more Unreal Engine 5 tutorials, and I have already plenty of them for Unreal Engine 4. So if you are interested in that, you can consider subscribing. A huge thank you to everyone who is already on Patreon and somewhat supporting me there. I'm really greatly thankful for that. So that's about it. See you around. Sir Fancy out.